Hello, everybody. I'm Richard Esplin. I'm head of product at Doc Labs, and our team works on the Truvera platform for digital identity. Today, I'm excited to speak with my friend Mirko Mollik. He's the identity architect at SPRIND. I met him at, I don't remember, IW or Internet Identity Workshop or one of these identity events, and he just was so generous, spending, I don't know, 3 or 4 conversations of long answering all my questions about Europe, about European digital identity. I love going to Mirko whenever I have questions about how EUDI will work in practice. We know the deadline for states to roll out a digital identity is coming as we enter 2026. So I'm really excited to get some details about specifically what Germany's doing and how that's going to relate to the rest of Europe. Now, we love our live audience that attends these sessions with us. We see a lot of long-time attendees in the audience, and we appreciate that and them coming back, everybody coming back. And we also see some new names, so we'd love to engage with you. If you say hello in the chat, tell us where you're coming from, help us to get to know our community. That's always helpful. And feel free to put questions in the chat. While Mirko and I are talking, it's hard for us to track the chat in real time. We might notice a few things, but Francisco, who runs the webinars, he'll be looking and gathering a few key questions for the end. We'll try to reserve time for audience questions. So with that background, let's start by introducing Mirko. So Mirko, for those who don't know you and don't know SPRIND, what would you like to explain about yourself?
Yes, so first of all, thank you very much for the invitation. It was also very nice to meet you in person in San Francisco. I think at the Brauhaus or so, this Bavarian pub, the typical end session of IIW. And so I'm in the identity field for the last couple of years, 2018 or so. First started in the blockchain part, then went to SSI, and then last summer, I went to SPRIND, the federal agency for breakthrough innovation. That has the task to build up the ecosystem for the EUDI wallet in Germany, because as you mentioned, there is a deadline. It's Christmas next year, so a bit more than a year we have officially time, but not just to build an app and certify it, but building the whole ecosystem. So it's a very tough line, but I hope to get some peaceful day during the Christmas time.
And what's SPRIND?
Yes, SPRIND, I think it's over quite 6 years old, so quite new. And Germany is famous for bureaucracy and so on. And the idea was like, okay, how can startups with very disruptive innovations can be supported? Where you think like, okay, this is maybe too early for investors for putting money in it. So here, because of this modern structure, the government was like, okay, we will contract them with this specific task. And then a team was built up, a team at the beginning of the year. We were around 40 people, and right now we are over 120, still hiring. So if you are interested in joining our great spirit or journey, just go on sprint.org/jobs, and happy to see you there.
And how does SPRIND relate to Germany's efforts for the European Union digital identity?
Yeah. So first, I think at the beginning it was just like, okay, just write the blueprint. So how an ecosystem could be set up. And then there was like, okay, we also need a wallet, of course, because just some papers or so, a nice PDF is not enough. So we also have a team working on the national wallet. Quite important that to mention that Germany will allow also other wallets, also non-government wallets. So there will be multiple in Germany. And a lot of us are also participating in standardization, like in the OpenID Foundation, in ETSI, in W3C, because there are a lot of missing standards. And I think this is a very good chance for us that we have people working on the standards, people working in the actual field, so we really see, okay, what's working, what's not, what can we adjust, and also we can challenge ongoing drafts of the standards. So yeah, and also not only the nerdy stuff, also involving civil society, also minority groups to check that no one is left behind. So it's a big task, to be honest. Also with potential relying parties, issuers, what's their current situation? Because on the one hand, you're starting on the playing field because there's nothing to orient, but you still have existing ecosystems where you have to fit in.
Which standards is your team actively contributing to?
I think one of the biggest or important ones were, of course, the transport protocols like OpenID for VCI that finally got in version 1.0. Also an IETF on SDJOT or the OAuth status list, or also in the ETSI part about regulations like access and registration certificates. So yeah, we are very widespread because it's not that only one standardization organization is covering all the parts. So there are multiple organizations with their specific focus topic, but all of them are relevant to us. So we try to play, to be active in all of them where we are necessary.
Excellent. I hadn't realized how big the SPRIND team's gotten. What percentage of the SPRIND team is working on EUDI efforts versus your other projects?
I think officially at SPRIND there are around 80 people, or let's say 100 employed, but not all of our project are contracted by SPRIND. So that we have the BSI, we have the Bundesdruckerei, PwC, Fraunhofer, ISAC. So there are multiple companies, Marais and Marais, some kind of consortium that is led by SPRIND. But yeah, so it's a big project and still growing. Yeah.
Excellent. So you're leading the efforts for the German national digital identity, but you're not the only team working on it.
Yes. Which is good because otherwise there wouldn't be no time to sleep or for social events.
Exactly. There's a lot going on in Europe. I know there's the architectural reference framework in GitHub. There's the large-scale pilots. There's the various implementation acts. If an identity professional just wants to get an update on what it wants to track one place to stay current, what do you recommend they track?
I think this is the wish list. Like, is there the one newsletter or so to get all the information? As you mentioned, I think the RAF is a quite good point to get updates. I honestly do not know if we have a newsletter from our project. So yes, we have one. For example, from time to time we have these open online consultations where we are presenting multiple topics in English, where we also get feedback from the audience, or also upload all the recordings on GitLab. But yes, unfortunately, there is not this one single source of information. Unfortunately, we are working on, of course, on this, especially when we are right now introducing the sandbox, where relying parties and issuers can test and prepare before going into production to make sure everything is compatible.
In that preparation topic, I'm aware of the large-scale pilots where there's some wallet distributors who have registered with the German government, with various governments, and then they have some live credentials that people are actually doing. Can you explain more of the large-scale pilots, both what's the current state and what's been learned and what's the next step is, and how does somebody participate in the next round? That whole piece of information would be useful.
Yeah, so we had 4 large-scale pilots in the past, I think for the last two years or so, 2.5 years. We built potential, EWC, and one more. And they were more like also including multiple member states, relying parties, issuers, and wallet providers to really test it. And we also contributed to the potential with the Funke wallets that we have. So we had in parallel this innovation competition. And then the Funke wallets, we started with 8 wallets that represented Germany for PIT issuance or EAAs, and then in the end 4 wallets to get the insights. And I think a lot of people were happy to achieve some kind of interoperability. So wallets from Germany were compatible with issuers from Greece and verifiers from the Netherlands. However, they all kind of struggled with changing standards, because a lot of standards were not final, and when they're not final, they may be breaking changes, which is very difficult or challenging because you want to test actually. So then there is the second phase of large-scale pilots that is running right now, the Aptitude and WeBuild, also 2 big consortiums, where they, for example, also challenging the payment authorization stuff. So banks are really interested in participating there. But I think it's closed. So for people right now, yes, I want to join these large-scale pilots. I think this ship has sailed, but these large-scale pilots are publishing a lot of information on GitHub and so on, like their RFCs where they're working on. So this is, I think, still a good chance to get updates on what's going on.
And for those in the audience who are interested in learning more, last month we hosted, Nick Lambert from Doc Labs hosted a conversation with Esther Mackey from Signicat to talk about more learnings from large-scale pilots. So a great opportunity for people to watch that and learn more. But given that the large-scale pilots are wrapping up, if somebody has a wallet, they want to start participating, what do they do next?
So first of all, when they want to be part in the EUDI wallet ecosystem, of course, they have to be compatible to the standards. What is a really good source for testing, for example, is the OpenID conformance suite. So here I can emulate an issuer or verifier or even a wallet. So I can emulate every component I need to test, and then I will get feedbacks on am I compliant, and if a test failed, I get detailed information where in the spec I was misaligned. So this is really good for interoperability testing, because in the RAF, or more generally in the implementing acts, which are legal binding, there will be technical references. So there it will be mentioned, or they will then point to ETSI standards, and in the ETSI standards they will reference all the required algorithms or protocols you have to follow, like OpenID for VC for the transport protocol, or SDJOT or MDOC for the credential formats. So you see already a very good picture in the RAF. And we think that next year also the implementing acts will be aligned with the standards. So looking at this to guarantee technical interoperability is one thing. Of course, then there will be some challenges, especially for wallet providers, because you cannot just say, hey, my wallet is compliant, now I'm an EUDI wallet. You need to be certified in the specific member states where you want to offer your wallet. And here every member state will publish a certification scheme where you have to certify yourself against, which I think is, I'm not sure if it costs any money, but of course certification is always expensive. So it's not that you say, hey, I've developed a wallet in the free time and I will use it by myself. This will be quite difficult to do. And if you have done it, then this wallet can be used by all the citizens, for example, from Germany when you got certified, and also then that when your wallet got published in the national trust list of wallet providers. I think it's quite easier for companies like Doc Labs or so, where you say, hey, I have components for issuers or verifiers, because here there is no certification required. There may be certification required when you want to issue qualified attribute of attestations or pub EAAs, because then certification is one thing. But when you are in the area of normal EAAs or so, there's no certification required at this point. There will be, to participate actually as a legal entity, you have to be registered, because we had some incidents in Germany in the past when we had our mobile driver license some years ago, and then somebody was like, hey, I can write in the QR code whatever I want to be. So in the QR code, when there still was written, I'm now reading with connecting with Doc Labs, there was no cryptographic verification of this. So we have learned from this and have a strong know your customer process. So when you are scanning QR code or via NFC and you see that you're talking to Doc Labs or so, you can be quite sure that you're actually talking with them. Yeah.
And I want to dig into each of those in some detail. The ARF is a very long document, but it's got all the details. That's where people should get the specific implementation guides. But Mirko, together, I think it'll be good to explain each of these, give an overview of each of these compliance areas. So under EUDI, my understanding is there's 3 types of identity attribute that's getting distributed. There's the personal identity document, which is like your core legal name, your address, your citizenship. That's largely going to come from the state. It's largely going to be an ISO 18013 MDoc style credential. Is that correct?
Yes, so in the RIF, it's the one format is the ISO format, but it can also be issued as SDJ.VC. Okay. So we have 2 types of credentials, but you're right, this is the holy grail, so the most value credential, because with this you can open bank accounts or apply for a loan, so the value in it is quite high, which then also there are some requirements where you can store this credential. So this is the only credential that can be stored in a certified EUDI wallet. So any other credentials, like even a qualified EAA or pub EAA, they could be stored in a non-EUDI wallet.
Oh, that's a good explanation. Good clarification. So that personal identity document going to come from the government, going to be in your certified wallet, and everybody else is just worrying about verifying it. Then you have your qualified electronic attributes, attestations attributes, which is your diploma, your professional certification, your business ID, your I'm a doctor, these kind of things where the government's probably involved in deciding who can do that certification. To issue that, you've got to be a registered QTSP, qualified trust service provider, and then you'll be issuing that as an SD jot. And like you said, either into the state wallet or into a private wallet. Is that correct?
Exactly. So there are some requirements to issue qualified electronic attestation of attributes. As you mentioned, they can be issued in every wallet. The condition is that when you issue a credential to someone, a QAA, you have to identify the person first. So you have to do a proper know your customer process. It can be done by the PIT, but you could also use any other approach. You could even use in-person checks or some kind of video ident, but you are liable for this. So you could even say, I have a simple video chat and say, okay, this is Richard. But when I trick you with AI, you will be liable for the damage that will occur.
Yeah.
And of course, there are advantages or disadvantages using a QAA. So we could say, yes, because we have more trust, we will use QAAs for every use case. There is not much difference in the credential format. You just have to do some more checks when validating it. But since a QAA provider needs to be certified, so you need certified hardware, you need certified processes, it will cost you something. So this is the typical business model of QTSPs, that they say, hey, not everyone needs to be a QAA provider. We will do this for you, but we will charge you for this. And then depending on your use case, you would say, of course, for a driver license, you say, hey, of course, I need this level of trust, this interoperable level in Germany, in Europe. But when you say I have a low-level credential, or maybe even just a national credential, or I have to find my own ecosystem with own management, then you could say, well, trust is defined by another manager of the ecosystem. We do not need this qualified stuff. We can skip this and just focus on EAAs to do so.
So if you want to build a business around qualified attestations, you're going to register with the government, you're going to tell them what kind of issuance you're going to do, you're going to prove that you're reliable, and then you can go through that, then you can provide those credentials. But then there are unqualified electronic attestations of attributes, EAAs, and you don't need any, the government's not really involved there. You're just saying, oh, I'm issuing credentials and I'm holding credentials, I'm verifying credentials.
So when you are, so the difference between an EAA provider and the QAA provider is just that the QAA provider can issue qualified certificates or attestations, but it's not limited to a specific one. So technically, a QAA provider is able to issue all credentials as QAA. So for example, when you say a diploma is a QAA, you could technically, or you could also legally issue diplomas for all universities out there, because you are a QAA provider and you can do this. So there is no authorization method that you say only this issuer is allowed to issue diplomas. So for this, we have the role of a pub EAA provider, so for public government. And here you get only this role when there is a national law that says only this institution is allowed to issue something. So for example, in Germany, we have this law that, for example, only universities can give out bachelor or master degrees. So all universities in Germany could say, yes, we are becoming a pub EAA provider, and this is then also published in the trust list. They say here the University of Berlin is issuing bachelor degrees according to this law. So they could do this. But for example, when they say, well, we want to give out gym cards for our local gym as pub EAAs, they could not do this because there is no law that says, hey, only gym cards are allowed to. So then they could issue it still as an EAA or a QEAA, but not as a pub EAA. So there are some regulations and so on, but it depends on every use case which one you want to go.
I didn't understand that role of the pub EAA. I thought that was just a synonym for acute qualified trust service provider. So that's useful. So the expectation is, for most use cases, I'm going to read the PID, I'm going to read whatever qualified or publicly qualified attestations are needed for my use case, and then I can take those attributes and use them as the basis for my custom credential, for like a derived credential. So if I'm an employer and I'm saying this is a system administrator, then I can check their legal name using the PID. I can check that they're qualified using a QTSP, a QEAA, and then I can issue my derived credential. Or if I'm giving a customer a loyalty card, the government doesn't need to know customer number 45 gets 4 tacos this month, 4 free tacos. I can pull those credentials out of the public ecosystem and then build my private credentials. Am I understanding correctly how we see this driving the broader identity ecosystem?
Theoretically, yes, but of course we have the GDPR. So you cannot just say, I just request all the credentials and derive what I want. Not GDPR clearly says like you need a really specific demand for this. So, for example, we also have this when you are asking me for my PID to identify myself, or the EIDA says when there is no national law to identify a person, you have to give the chance to use a pseudonym. So, for example, when I want to open a bank account, the bank will say, yes, I have the anti-money laundering law. I have to identify you. So, of course, they will ask for the PID. There will no free text field where I can type in my identity. But when LinkedIn or YouTube is asking me for my name, like, hey, for our social network, so people can search you, then this is no law. So here, LinkedIn or YouTube need to provide me, so they can still ask for my name, but they need to give me the chance to use a pseudonym, so a free text, so that I could also say, hey, I'm Batman. So here we also have this whole concept of transparency for the registrar. So before you can ask to any wallet, like, hey, please present me your PID, your MBL, any personal information, you need to register these claims at the registrar. So so in each member state we will have a registrar controlled by the government, and here you have to identify yourself, and then you have to upload the data there via the API. You have to say, hey, I need the driver license because I'm renting cars to my customers. And then, only then, when you have done this, you can make these requests to a wallet, because the wallet will check for over-asking. When you haven't published these data online, which is equal to the privacy policy we already have today, but let's be honest, nobody's reading it. I would say most of our audience right now haven't looked at the riverside.com policy before joining here, asking like, why are they collecting my name and so on. And the idea is here that we cannot really check if you have a real legal base to use it, like just because they wrote like, hey, we need your driver license because we are renting cars. The registrar will not check if you are actually renting cars. But the main idea here is you have to make it public available, you have to make it transparent, that everyone is able to check what you are claiming from the user. So even when we are doing a peer-to-peer connection, everyone is like civil society or lawyers can be sure, like when we are scanning this and we see Doc Labs has registered these claims with these purposes, we can check this, is there a legal basis? And if there's not legal basis, when they are over asking, trying to collect data to sell it, they can press legal charges against you, because the data will be stored there for up to 10 years. So it's very difficult to collect these data and just hide them. Yeah.
So as an issuer, we talked about how to get certified as a QTSP, or where you can, where the PID comes from, what you can do with an unqualified attestation. As a verifier, there's a similar certification process where you have to say, in order to access the issuer keys and be able to verify credentials, I need to tell the government what I plan to do with this information, so then the government can enforce that I'm complying with the privacy policy.
Exactly. So we do not have this privacy policy check that the government or somebody says, yes, I have checked that you need this data and I approve this, because then the registrar would also be some kind of trust service provider, because then we would tell the user in the wallet, yes, we have checked that Doc Labs really need this, and then also the registrar would be liable for this. For example, in Germany, we have this EID card, and in the beginning, you had to ask for a certificate from the government to read data from this card, and there you really have to explain why you need really this data. So this feels good as a citizen, so I know that the ministry checked this and so on. But over the 10 years, only 150 certificates were given out, so the amount of work is not that much. But when we think about that, thousands or hundreds of thousands companies will register, and each company will have multiple use cases, this will not scale, because it's not limited to the PID, it's including all personal data, even your gym membership card. So here we say like, okay, we cannot automate this or be liable, so the only thing that we can do is to identify the verifier and also the issuer, and say, okay, once we have identified you with a strong know your business, know your customer process, you have some kind of unlimited privileges, so we allow you to request everything, but be advised, when we catch you doing some fraud, we can easily press legal charges against you.
So the government's not going to reject any verifiers so long as they're registered as a proper business. But the registry exists so that if a citizen feels like their rights got violated, they have all the paperwork, all the digital information needed to enforce a claim. That makes sense.
Exactly. And even when let's say an ecosystem says, yes, but we want to protect this, there's also this, so that not every relying party is able to request our credentials. For example, you have critical health data and so on. The hospitals could also add an embedded disclosure policies where they clearly say only these relying parties are authorized to request these data because it's critical. So then when the request comes in, the user would be warned like, hey, Doc Labs tries to get access to your medical data, but they are not authorized. Do you allow this or not? So here we can make a lot of checks automatically to protect the user. So there will be ways to as a user to say, yes, I'm fully aware of this. I want to tell this. But thinking about the normal user, we are able to harden the system so that you still have self-control over this, because we will not be in charge 100% of all the time. So there will be these situations where we're not thinking and just say, okay, yes, just do it. So here we are trying really to make it usable on the one side, so that we have this one-tap experience that we have with Apple Wallet, Google Wallet, which feels great, to be honest. But on the other hand, we also want to make sure that we are not sharing very sensitive information to anyone out there.
And is this infrastructure to manage the keys and the verifier access, is that live already? SPRIND's already built that, right?
Yes, so we will start with the sandbox in, I think next week. Yeah, on the 15th December, we will start the sandbox for some selected German relying parties to test their ecosystem. So there they will test their implementation against the government wallet that will be then follow next year. And here on the one hand, we want to get feedback. And this is a controlled environment. So, for example, there you will not have real personal data. You will have this fake Erika Mustermann card. So all the protocols and standards are the ones that will be in the production system, but everything else is mocked. So there is no risk to break any rules or so on. And our current approach is that everyone in Germany that wants to participate has to pass this sandbox. But it's a security feature for themselves, so that they know, okay, I have passed all the tests, so that they are not going out there and one day later they are getting letters from lawyers or so because they broke multiple laws.
And is this specific to Germany or is it Europe-wide? Is it one registry per country or is it one registry for all of Europe?
No, it will be one registry per country. So the implementing act says the country where you are based, your company where it has its residence, there it has to be registered. So all German companies have to be registered in Germany, all from France in France, and so on. But when you are registered, you can communicate with all EUDI wallets in Europe. So you do not need to register in each country. So this is made possible because the EU or the implementing acts will give some kind of equal level of security and trust around Europe.
But they'll need to be, if I register in Spain and then I want to check the ID for a German citizen, I call the Spanish registry and then it goes and does a query and gets the German ID, or do I need to also call the German? Do I need to integrate with each country individually, or do I integrate with the country where I'm registered and then it's all handled on the back end by the countries?
You do not need you're not using the registrar as some kind of proxy and so on, because then we would have this centralized monitoring we clearly want to avoid. So the registrar is just for to make your identity as a relying party public available, but the whole communication which you will do with the wallet is done peer-to-peer, so without the registrar even knowing, which is very important for privacy reasons. So the normal flow would more like you are sending your request to the wallet either via OpenID for VP or via proximity mode, and then the wallet would verify the certificates that got issued by the registrar, and then also gets the revocation list from the registrar. So the registrar only knows like, okay, somebody is asking for the revocation list, but it has no clue which wallet is talking to which relying party. So this is very important when we are designing these systems, that we do not have this bottlenecks of monitoring.
But as a verifier, I'm getting the information, the data peer-to-peer from the holder, but then
Yes.
I have to look up in the registrar to get the issuer key in order to check the certificate. And is that done in the geography where I'm registered as a business, or do I have to go check all 27 registrars to find the country that holder belongs to?
So speaking of the PIT, so here every member state has its own published trust list for PIT providers. So there you will find all the links. Oh, let's say the only thing you need is the EU list of trusted list. So it's a list that will link all the national lists. So when you're getting this list, it's an XML file. There you will find all the national lists of Germany, of Spain and France and so on, so from all EU member states. And then you would say, okay, I got a PIT presented from Germany because it has the letter code Germany in the PIT. So you need to get the trusted list of PIT providers from Germany from this national trusted list, and then validate the chain of trust. So this is the way how you will get the public key of the issuer to actually verify if this process is authentic or not. We also, because we know that this is complicated and developers love to skip some really important checks, we will give clear guidelines or instructions step by step what you need to do, what can be cached, and so on, how to make it optimized. So we are not able to provide SDKs in our programming language, but we are on a very good track to describe the algorithm process that you have to do.
So to put it in terms of OpenID, the VICAL, the Verified Certificate Authority List, for all the PIDs, all the government issue credentials, that'll live in each jurisdiction. That list for all of Europe will be in each jurisdiction. So you just check the country where you're registered, and then you can verify in a European. For the QTSP, or for the qualified attestations, where it's a much bigger list of potential issuers, how's that handled?
It's the same, funnily. So there we will also have this list of QAA providers, and you're doing exactly the same. So
it will get published to every jurisdiction in Europe, and you only have to integrate with the one you live in, or the one you're registered in.
Yeah, not really. It depends of the QAA issuer, but it's not the wallet that needs to fetch this. It's always the relying party. So yes, the list can be huge, but we assume because there you will only add the root keys, so updates to this list will not occur that often. So updating it will not be that critical. So yes, as you mentioned, for PIT, QAAs and PUB EAAs, it's the same procedure. We go to the national lists, grab the information, and just do the classical X509 validation. Yeah.
But you go to your local registrar, and that has access to all the national lists for Europe.
No, there is this provided list of the EU, the list of trusted list. So this has nothing to do with the registrar. There can be an interesting link or so, but there is one list available, or there will be two lists for some reasons. And this is your root of trust that you will just fetch. Of course, you have to verify that you got the correct list, because when I'm able to give you this trust anchor, I control your whole trust ecosystem, because from this step you're going down. So this is the base set, but this is already done with the EIDAS 1. We introduced this list of trusted lists to validate qualified electronic signatures for PDFs. So it's not a new approach, but we will extend this with the list for PIDs, for the list for QEAAs and PUB-EAAs.
And so Doc Labs is a Swiss company. For us to be able to verify, we'd have to open a subsidiary within an EU consortium like Germany or Spain in order to be able to access that local registry, right?
Exactly. Yeah, this is a problem. How can you participate when you are out of the EU? So when your country is not in the EU trusted list, for this you have to register, finding a startup, whatever, in one of these countries, and then of course talk to your legal person. How can you now manage that you are asking for your small company in Spain that will move all the data to your mother company in Switzerland, in the USA, or in Canada?
And if you're in more than one European country, then you pick the geography you want to register, but you have to follow the laws of whichever geography you're in.
Yes, so of course there is the risk, because in the Implementing Act, it's just mentioned, every member state has to define the policy how to onboard there. So let's take your approach. You are not based in the EU, so you will, when every country has published its policy, you will look like, okay, which country has, let's say, the lowest policy with the lowest effort where I could join. It could be that one country says, for example, Spain says, no, as a company you have to do these 10 checks, while Italy says, or Malta says, nah, just click this checkbox and then you are in. So you're looking for the weakest element in the chain, because this is the disadvantage in the EU when you are registered in one EU company. And for example, we have this problem with online casinos and Malta, which is a common problem. So a lot of businesses are using this loophole, going to Malta and register, but say, yes, but we are in the EU, we are compliant with EU laws, so we can offer our service to all EU citizens.
Yeah. So thank you. This is super valuable to get this insight into how it will work in practice. So the keys are X509. You're going to get that to your local database, your local registrar. The credential format can be an ISO 18013, or it can be an SDJOT, selected disclosure, JWT. The protocol to receive a credential or to verify a credential is OpenID for verifiable credentials, 1.0 that was just finally ratified, like you said. You mentioned revocation. How's revocation handled?
For SDJOT, it will be the OAuth status list. So status list especially. And I'm not quite sure what was in the ISO MDoc. I think it was CRL. For X509 certificates, we will also go with CRL, because OCSP is also is lacking of privacy. And but we will see that the implementing acts can change over the time, because, for example, we see, okay, there's a better fitting protocol, a better fitting algorithm, and then there will be updates, and there will be, of course, this period, to migrate, but this is still possible. So we will know what will be the tech stack when the EU wallets will be shipped out. But so, for example, no DIDs are right now in the technical stack, but it could be in like 4 years or so, they will be added to the implementing acts, and then they are mandatory. So every relying party or every wallet has to support it.
That's helpful. So you'll go to whatever registrar is in your country that gives you the issuer key, the X509. They'll also give you the revocation, whether it's the status list or the CRL.
And this is also interesting. Also, there are some open gaps like, okay, will you use the same key to issue a credential for signing the revocation list? Because here there are some attack vectors you could eliminate. For this, for example, for the PID provider will publish two keys, one to sign the credentials and the other one to sign the revocation list. So the relying party, if implemented correctly, is able to verify this. So yeah, but to make clear, it's not the registrar will give you just the key for your identity or the certificate for your identity, because you will never share your the private key with anyone. So you'll get the certificates. For EAA providers, there is another approach. It's called Rulebooks. So in a rulebook, everyone, for example, even when you say, hey, we want to make employee cards to enter the buildings, you could say, hey, we are publishing a rulebook where we define how the scheme of our credential is defined and also who is authorized to issue this kind of credential. And these rule books are then machine processable. So a verifier could say, okay, we will accept your type of credential, your rule book, and then they exactly know, like, okay, what are the authorized issuers and what are the other rules that I have to follow or the issuers have to follow.
And that concept of a rule book is defined in the ARF. I haven't noticed rule books before.
Yes, it's a new type of approach. So in the ARF, or especially in the technical specification of the ARF, I think it's TS11. The structure is defined, and the idea is that everyone is able to publish such rulebooks. So there will be a web service where everyone is able to publish it. And then, of course, just because you publish it doesn't mean that you are authorized to do so or that there's any trust in this rulebook. But right now, the legal tech is everyone can publish it there. So you have this discovery mechanism. Like today, everyone is able to register a domain with the word bank in the domain name. So there's no check for this. But the whole trust in the ecosystem or the value in this credential you're issuing is based on how many people are trusting your rulebook. Because with this rulebook, you can define who is authorized to issue such credentials.
That makes sense. How does the approach that Germany's taking differ from other geographies? I know Spain has done quite a bit. Estonia, of course, has been leading the way in a long time. Do you see, obviously, we know there's a lot of consensus around the ARF, but how do you think things are expected to be different between jurisdictions, or are there areas that still aren't settled? What are things that people need to know as they start participating in EUDI?
I haven't checked all member states how they are approaching it. But for example, I can just speak for Germany. So we said we make a very transparent process. We have this open consultation, online processes to share knowledge and also get insights. We already had 3 conferences with experts on stage sharing their knowledge, discussing this. We have also this blueprint like the RAF, where we are describing the approach of Germany, but also open for feedback, so people can open issues and say, please clarify, or I have a question or a concern. So I would say we are very open in this approach. Of course, this is not cheap. So we know that, for example, smaller countries do not have the budget to do this. Or also say maybe we don't want to spend this. So it's not that we say, okay, we think everyone should invest the same thing. We are very open-minded. We are very interested in to align with member states and to look like, okay, how they are tackling different problems. Because it's good to talk now, to talk about challenges, and not like, okay, when we are in production, then to try to align on course again.
Yeah, that makes sense. What's the plan for, I know the SD JOTS as a format allows that selective disclosure, but we talk a lot about proving you're over 18 without giving your birthday, that kind of range proof. How's that expected to be handled?
Quite simple. We have like 8 different attributes, like age over 16, age over 18. So it's not a range proof, but it's just an additional attribute with the most common age values. So because we were like, okay, we had this with anon creds, with CL signatures that would allow this for really dynamic usage. The main problem is here we do not have crypto agility. So this approach only worked with CL signatures.
Yeah.
And with this approach, because we challenge the demand and we say, hey, only like 6 or 7 ages are relevant, let's just put it as an attribute in the PID, and then we can use it with every algorithm, even with the post-quantum algorithms. Right now we're using elliptic curves for this, but when we have to switch, we can just say, okay, just use another algorithm, but all our use cases are still working.
Having to use SOGIS approved cryptography is very limiting. It's been like 5 years since they've updated.
Yeah, so we also spending a lot of time also in zero knowledge proofs to check like, okay, because even when we say, okay, we do not need this range proofs because there's no real demand in the market, we still have some privacy problems like issuer verifier linkability, because when you have a typical signature with private public keys, the issuer can find out where the credentials are used, which would be very critical when a democratic country is shifting. So we could say like, okay, this is not the case today, but who knows what will be in 5 or 10 years. So we are also investigating in like zero knowledge proofs to improve privacy.
So this is really valuable. I could just ask tons more questions, but I realize we don't have a lot of time left. The audience has asked a whole bunch of questions too. I forgot to ask before we started, Mirko, do you have a hard stop in 10 minutes, or can we keep going as long as we have interesting questions?
We can still continue. At one point, my wife will get me away for dinner, but yeah, I think some more minutes are yeah.
That makes sense. A lot of questions. So thank you very much. Let me pull to the list that Francisco brought up. I'm sad at all the questions that I still have that I can't ask. But so we have SPRIND has got the infrastructure set up for verification. You've been doing the pilots. When will a relying party be able to register and be able to start playing? You mentioned the sandbox. Well, a couple questions. Where do I find the sandbox? When can you said next week? Hopefully, I can register on the sandbox. When can we start doing it for production and all that kind of thing? Can you explain that to us?
Yeah, so the sandbox is very limited. So on Monday there will be. So first of all, it has to be a use case for German citizens, because in the first case we need to make sure that the citizens in Germany have a benefit of it.
And do you remember the domain? Is SPRIND, or is it in some German national government domain?
It's not the SPRIND domain. But I do not want to share it right now.
Yeah.
But,
so next week we'll look for an announcement to where to find the sandbox.
Yes,
that's fair.
Yes, so they told me on Monday or so. But the point is, right now we are just testing with less than 20 relying parties with the use cases, and it's only limited to the PID, like banks and so on, to get some insights. But over next year, we will also, or even in Q1, so let's say March, April, we will extend this for EAAs to extend, and it will be increased at this point. The production, so when it's open for everyone, so it will be around end of next year, beginning of 2027. So this is the goal. But yeah, so we all the information we have and all the information to get insights, like how the technical requirements, they will be open source all the time. So you could even say, even when Mirko and his team will not let you access the closed sandbox, you could just test against your own mocked system. But we say we need feedback in the first place, and this will only work when we have a limited amount of relying parties to know, like, okay, what kind of developer guides we have to write, where are the most frequently asked questions so that we can scale in the end. Because as Germany, we say our target audience is not just e-government services, but also non-government services. And for this, we have to make sure that the system probably scales good and that we will provide all the information that are needed for reliant parties.
That makes sense. So it'll be a staged process to gradually widen it. That makes sense. It sounds like smart development. Is the fee schedule been decided? If I'm a small business, just a couple of people, and I want to start verifying, how much do I need a budget?
I don't know the exact number. I know from the implementing acts, it's forced that it has to be cheap. So we know as Germany, like, okay, there are also some the question, like, do you see this as a government, as a business opportunity, to get a parallel income beside taxpayer money? Or will this be also a blocker for the whole ecosystem? Because when you are charging companies, they will not join the system. So here, I think the first go, we will do it for free, because we have to look like, okay, what are the running costs? Maybe the identification process will cost something. It all depends how automated it can be. When it's fully automated and so on, and next to zero, we could say, okay, we are just skipping it. But this has to be defined. But as I said, in the implementing acts, it has to be cheap.
Yeah.
For every
Details
member
coming.
state. Yeah.
Details coming soon. That makes sense. How do you expect the European Union digital identity to relate to other parts of the information economy in Europe, like health data? Somebody in the comments mentioned the European Union health data system. I just forgot the acronym, but is there already a plan for EUDI to mix with the health data policies?
Not my primary topic. So we are not focusing on one specific ecosystem like health, industry, or e-government. With the whole EUDI, we try to set the ground layer to say, okay, how authentication and so is done. So with the health sector, we would be like, okay, what is your existing trust infrastructure? How can this be aligned to the EUDI ecosystem? Because then when we know, like, when we have this aligned structure, this different ecosystem can reuse or can benefit from all the credentials. So the automotive industry can benefit from the government credentials, because there will be multiple situations where I need to present multiple credentials. And this can only be done in a very secure and user-friendly way when we have the same baseline of technology for this.
That makes sense. It was EHDS, EU Health Data Spaces. I'm not familiar. I'm going to have to look that up. It's always interesting to learn from. Thank you for the audience for teaching us. Do you know how the big tech provider wallets like Google, Apple, and Samsung are going to fit into the EUDI ecosystem? So
Samsung and Google publicly announced they are very interested to become an EUDI wallet provider. And we as Germany say, yes, always welcome, but you need to be aligned with the law. So that we clearly say, here are our privacy requirements, here are our security requirements. And only when you are aligned to this and when you got certified, then we will accept you. So we say to the big tech, welcome. This is especially for Germany. We say we will have the government provided EUDI wallet, but there will be, of course, room for non-government wallets. They will not get any public funding, and also the requirement is that the wallet has to be free of charge for the user. So it will be difficult for companies out there to provide EUDI wallets for natural persons. There may be, of course, a business chance with the business wallet that came some days or weeks, announced the requirements, but this is not the task right now of our project. So we are right now only focusing on the ecosystem for the natural wallets, natural person wallets.
Yeah, so they've got to certify like any other wallet provider, and the process for certification in the large-scale pilots, it explained the process for certification. But now that those have closed, how does a wallet provider get certified?
Yeah. So every member state will publish a certification scheme. We are right now working on this in Germany. Also, other member states are working on this, and I think there's also there maybe ongoing or close, I don't know, a public tender from the EU Commission, because they say smaller countries do not have the budget to define their own certification scheme, so the EU will provide some kind of general scheme that can be used for it. However, of course, the problem is that, let's say, Google or Samsung want to tackle Europe's, like all European offer their wallet, they need to be certified and accepted in every member state to be accessed. So this could be a blocker for them. But at this point, we do not know the certification schemes. It could be that some countries says, okay, we know Germany is very strict, so when you are certified in Germany, we will just let you pass. So yeah, we will see next year, hopefully.
Excellent, that makes sense. So thank you. Hopefully that answers your questions. Margus, Pierce, Carl, you all asked excellent questions. Sorry for not crediting the questions as I went through. Also trying to move quickly, so we can't go into too much detail. But you mentioned the business wallets. I realized we spent this whole hour talking about humans as holders. There's a whole topic about the business wallet. Can you give the 2-minute version of the business wallet?
I would love to say so, but I honestly have no idea where the purpose for it is. So this is the job of the other ones. So don't get me wrong. I think there is a value of it, but I haven't spent that much time to really say you can use it. I think it would be really great for supply chain validation. So when I go to the supermarket, I scan a product, I really can be sure that this was in a fair trade country and so on. But it will have the same problem as the wallet for natural persons. You need to find the demand for a high value credential where people say, I am willing to invest in this to migrate to this process. And when this use case is not there, this holy grail credential, even the business wallet will not enter the market, because people say, like, for example, for the PIT or even legal PIT, yes, you can open a bank account in 2 minutes. And I'm like, yes, but I'm not doing this every week. So I'm using my wallet to pay, or I use my phone to pay. But as a user, I do not care which app it is in the end, when it's for free for me and it's easy to use. So it will be very interesting. I think this will be also evaluated in the next large-scale pilots, where the demand for the business wallets will be. I hope a lot of processes that we have defined, especially for security and privacy, can be reused, so we do not need to start from scratch. But yeah, not my job.
It makes sense that it's not your focus. Milu thinks it's unfair for me to ask you to summarize the business wallet in 2 minutes, because it's a big topic. In fact, we have an entire episode. Our next episode will all be on the business wallet. We'll spend the whole hour on the business wallet, so we'll cover that in more detail then. But thank you for giving us a teaser for our next event. They're largely the EUDI Architectural Reference Framework, the ARF. It's focused on X509 certificates for key management, SD JOTs. We talked about some of these standards. It hasn't integrated DIDs, DIDComm, W3C verifiable credentials. Do we see those merging in the future, or is that going to be for the unqualified use cases exclusively?
So for example, for EAAs, for the trust management, right now you are allowed to use OpenID Federation, not for QEAs. Of course, an ecosystem could say, like, or an EUDI wallet provider could say, hey, we are supporting DIDs. They can totally do this. But this is not a requirement for all the relying parties out there to support it. So here we say, just because there are multiple solutions for a problem does not mean we include them all, because in the end you have to challenge everyone. You have to deep dive in potential security parts. Let's use DIDs. Okay, we say yes, let's support DIDs. Which DID methods? There are over 100 or 200 different DID methods, so we would have to analyze them. For DIDComm, we analyzed it and saw some security or scalability problems. So I think what really worked for the protocols that are right now final in the RIF or in the implementing acts, that a lot of people spend time in security research, in optimization and so on. Because when you go through the drafts, for example, of SDJOT or OpenID for VC, you see a lot of breaking changes because people are, okay, we are trying something out. Okay, we got feedback from out there that this is not secure or it can be done better. And for example, even SDJOT that add a small addition to normal JOT took like over 3 or 4 years to go to version 1.0. So as I mentioned, implementing acts can be reopened, so the door is not closed for DIDComm or DIDs, but I think it's highly unlikely that when the whole EUDI wallet for natural person is starting, that DIDs will be relevant for this. Not sure about the business wallet because this will be a separate part, but for legal ones, it's not in the scope.
Yeah, I'm personally fairly disappointed with that part of the ARF. I think it underestimates the value of that decentralization that's available. I'm very nervous about a number of the things with verifier registration, things like that. But it'll be interesting to see it used in practice and see how it shakes out. If I have a staff passport and I'm using DIDs and decentralized infrastructure for my staff employment credential, and I want it to live alongside, I want to use alongside a PID or a qualified attestation, can those live in the same wallet? Can I get a wallet certified for QTSP and still do the other stuff? Or do I have to keep those as separate wallets?
No, as I mentioned, you can store it in the wallet. You can also have compliant wallets. So, for example, you will certify the core components of your app. So that's an EUDI wallet, but you can add any other protocol on top. Of course, then the certification body has to make sure that this is not a security vulnerability, this new feature that you added. But let's assume he or she analyzed DIDs and said, no, it's safe, also DIDComm, then they will certify you. Then you are, of course, you are able to use these DID-based or DIDComm-based credentials in the same wallet. But as mentioned, it's not guaranteed that every relying party will consume them, because the relying party is only forced to support OpenID for VC and the proximity flow, because they say, well, this is the requirement of the RIF, of the implementing act, which I have to do. But of course, ecosystems, let's say the education sector says, no, we want DIDs, so we are using this for all our credentials. They can do this, but this is then like a layer on top of the EUDI wallet ecosystem. So reusing the existing infrastructure they have, but it's not really part of the EUDI wallet.
Yeah, that's a helpful explanation. So I'm super excited about the step forward for global digital identity that Europe is taking. It is so much better than the current process we have where it all goes to some big data broker or whatever to solve these business problems. Thank you for all your work you're doing it. I realize, thank you for being generous with your time, going 10 minutes over. I don't want to delay your dinner any longer. But maybe as we launch these systems, as SPRIND goes live next year, we can impose on you or a member of your team to come on and answer additional questions on this topic. Would that be possible?
I think that's definitely possible, and we will be at multiple events, EIC or IW for next year and so on. So when you find us there, talk to us. We will continue to have online sessions. So always reach out. There are no stupid questions. We are always happy to see where the audience is interested in.
Excellent. Thank you so much. For those who want to learn more, in GitHub, if you search EUDI, you'll get the architectural reference framework. There's lots of detail there. You'll be able to spend all your time getting into the details. For now, that's where we'll leave it. Thank you for the audience. The conversation is always useful. For those who are watching the recording, if you want to learn, it's fun to see the audience answering each other's questions. If you want to learn from these identity experts who are watching the session live, then register for the next event. You can find those events at doc.io. And with that, thank you very much, Mirko. And thank you for everybody who's attending. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you all. Thank you, Rajat. Bye-bye.